Welcome to the Walkoff Mariners podcast. My name is Jordy. I am joined with Juan Forno. We are discussing some Mariners baseball. It is a big day. We are recording this on Tuesday, July 30th, I believe. I should have checked that beforehand.
You're right.
Tuesday, July 30th, which for baseball fans is a significant day because today is the trade deadline. The Mariners are buyers, which we showed they are. They showed they are, I guess. I didn't do anything with it. Made a decent amount of moves. They were pretty active. Probably one of the more active buyers out there, I would say. I think Miami and Toronto probably made more moves overall, but we definitely were one of the more active teams. We got some big names, Arozarena, Garcia, Turner, JP Chargois. Juan, first thoughts. What do you think overall of the players that we acquired at the trade deadline?
I think it was a B to B plus deadline for us. It showed the fans that they actually went out and tried. There was plenty of reports saying that they were aggressive for Vladdy. They went and got 2 bats. They went and got 2 pitchers. And they weren't nobodies. They weren't, that lateral move where we felt like, oh, we're just replacing one man's trash with another man's trash, or that Seawall trade last year where it's like, okay, we don't really know what the situation is. I think it was very clear that the Mariners are very serious this year about being all in, and I think they came up a little bit light in terms of hitters. With that being said, there wasn't a whole lot of available options. Obviously, we didn't see a ton of guys move to other teams that we missed out on. But we lack that one blue chip player, depending on how you see Randy Arozarena. Obviously has been to a great start, but I think deep down we were all hoping for Vladdy, right? We didn't see that happen, but that would have pushed it to A+ territory.
I think the Mariners agree with you too. From all the reports, they were going hard for Vladdy, which I love the idea, because when I think of a team because we don't know what that means, right? That could be interpreted anyway. I always imagine it like, essentially, I have Vladdy in one of my dynasty fantasy leagues, so I just imagine like Dipoto doing what the other guys do and just sending random trade requests every morning, and you're like, no, I don't want to move him. That, or every just 10 minutes, Jerry Dipoto's phoning Ross Atkins and be like, come on.
Yeah, I feel like it was a daily
conversation.
conversation. It was a daily conversation, I think. So, I think they did well. And I like what it cost. I mean, when you factor in what it cost us to get these guys, I feel really good about it.
Yeah, I would agree on the front that like we were at least clearly buyers, right? Like the last couple years, it seemed like it was directionless. I know we went out and got Castillo, but offensively, the last 2 years, we haven't done really anything at the deadline at a time we were competing. So this time they went out, they got Arozarena, who, as you mentioned, depends on your feelings of him. You can't argue he was one of the top 3 bats that were moved. I don't think you can. And the big thing is, at the end of the day, you can't say that the Mariners major league team isn't better. There's no argument there. I know the last couple of moves between Turner and Chargois were boring, but sometimes boring moves are important. I would have liked a little bit more, though, right? Just that one move. And as you mentioned, too, it didn't cost us a lot. We kept all of our elite prospects, which makes me wonder how we couldn't at least move a couple of them for a really good bat. I feel like there's something out there we could have done, but the nice thing is Houston, Texas didn't really get much better either.
No, neither did Houston. Houston, Texas. Sorry, I heard Houston, Texas, and just made it out to be one thing because of state.
The Houston Texans did not get better either today. That's an important thing to note.
That won't wrap my brain a little bit. I was like, what the fuck? Ooh, fucking Wartsmith.
Oh, you're not wrong, Jordy. You're not relevant, but...
No, you're right. I don't think they got a whole lot better. Texas, moved Lorenzen and brought in a piece too, I think. And then Kikuchi went to Houston, which obviously, they've had their trouble with their starting rotation and health. But he hadn't looked good his last couple of starts, to be honest with you. So we don't know for sure that was a necessarily an upgrade or what that's going to look like.
And that has kind of been a trend with Kikuchi too, right? He always looks really good. And then the All-Star break, it kind of falls off. So there's a chance that happens again. And if it does, Blue Jays fans are going to be they're going to hate Atkins a little less.
And can I be honest with you? And I'm not saying this from a biased standpoint. I think the Houston Astros were the biggest losers of this trade deadline. What they had to give up to get Kikuchi is insane. Loporfito and Bloss, these are two MLB, close to ready guys at a young age that you gave up. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Loporfito was a top 100 guy before clearing that threshold of being eligible. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. I was reading reports that they didn't want to move him in any trades, and that was kind of the untouchable piece that was being discussed. Obviously, players like Alvarez and Altuve are not getting moved, but a guy like Loporfito and this Bloss kid who made his major league debut due to all those starting rotation injuries. And I understand that the results weren't pristine, but this is a kid that was drafted last year. I think they overpaid for Kikuchi. I don't think they're going to get out of him what they need to push them over the top. And I think they are going to watch these players excel in Toronto.
Yeah, I think I would agree in that they're the biggest losers of the draft. The only team I can think of that may have lost more are maybe the Padres. They gave up a lot of talent, and that's even going back to the Arraez trade. But the thing with the Padres is this was a clear effort, right? They got significantly better out of these deals. I like the Astros, they got better in that they couldn't get worse. This isn't, they weren't trades that were like, oh, they're going for it. It's like, all right, they're trying to sneak into the playoffs. Those were the trades that's what the trades felt like.
No, I agree, man. I think that they're going to regret that trade for sure.
Another thing that we didn't even really discuss yet, but I do really like the Yimi Garcia trade in the timing of it, because it seemed like a few hours after that, all of a sudden the rental relievers were going for so much. We didn't pay a ton, like no disrespect to Clase, but this was a guy, he has a lot of potential. He's got a lot of tools. It hasn't translated yet to the majors. He's definitely a project. Didn't really have room for us, but there was a lot of much better prospects traded for relievers that aren't as good as Yimi Garcia.
Yeah, and I mean, we've already seen it with Garcia. If I'm not mistaken, he's already thrown 3 scoreless innings for us and clean, like low.
Just got another one today.
So yeah, he's looked really.
And he hasn't even been to Seattle yet.
He hasn't even made it to the West Coast yet. And he's already.
That's the stadium where it gets easier, and he's still crushing it on the road.
Yeah, man, and I think I think Clase has a bright future, and I think this is one of those rare win-win types trades. Obviously, we're seeing dividends with Yimi. I think with the Blue Jays trading Kiermaier, Clase is going to get called up and be left up the rest of the year in Toronto to see what he's made of. And I think there was no real room, depending on how you view the Mariners outfield going forward, right? In my eyes, you got Arozarena in left for the rest of this year +2. You got Julio for the next decade in center field, and then
for the rest of his life.
For the rest of his life. And they're not going to Ken Griffey it twice. And then with the way Robles is playing, that's your right fielder right there. And then your outfielder is fucking locked up with 3 studs. If it does translate like what we've seen out of Robles lately, and there's no reason to believe that it's not possible based off of his high draft pedigree and his rookie season in Washington. And then the medication stuff, like you were telling me too. So,
the medication stuff
with Robles, his ADHD meds.
No, that was Chris Davis I was talking about.
Oh, that was Chris Davis. Well, now I'm I just fucking stunted Robles with mental health issues.
No. To avoid any confusion, I told the story of what happened with Chris Davis, why his career didn't turn out, which is a discussion for another time. It is actually still very sad, but no, not the case with Robles. The only issue right now with Robles is that contract, because his contract is up at the end of the season. He needs a new one. We don't know if he'll be signed or not, but even if he walks, we're still replacing one outfielder, and we still have Rayleigh and more. We can get a platoon in there. So whatever. Rest of season, though, he's looking really good. And I was joking. I've made this joke so many times, but all season I've been like, what would really help us is a Jared Kelenic type player. And we've got a player. He's been playing better than Kelenic. I think when his numbers cool off, it'll be pretty relevant, but it's true. We need a player just like that.
I guess I didn't really. I thought Robles, because he was DFA'd, had more time on his service contract for his rookie contract. But that makes sense because I think it's 2019 when he came up.
Yeah, he was part of the championship team, and he had a good season then too.
He did. He did have a good season, and that's what I kind of know him off of. I don't follow Washington all that closely, but I mean, it may not even be a bad idea to go down to the clubhouse and say, "Hey, man, 40 or 54 mil, does that get it done, or what are you thinking?" You know, because obviously he doesn't have. He was DFA'd earlier this season, so can we get ahead of it and get him locked up for even if it's 3 years and it fits that Randy Arozarena window, maybe.
I I think they wait to the end of the season to figure out if this is just a hot streak or if this is legit, if this is the guy we can expect to come into play next year.
Which is like, it's less risky going that route, but then you're competing with the rest of the teams, right? And now you're almost bidding against yourself. If it's, that's the risk, right? Because if he cools off, then you got nothing to worry about. But if he remains this hot, then fuck it, who knows what kind of a hitter he's going to look like in the free agency market.
Well, if he keeps this up, he's priced himself out of Seattle.
That's why I'm like, we got to just take that risk and go get it done now.
Based on our previous winters. Let's talk about
the one thing with Robles. Sorry, I will switch, but I do want to shine a light on the fact that it is hard for Seattle to get free agency hitters there. He has proven that he can hit there, and so maybe it's not as much of a deterrent, and we don't have to overpay to get him to stay in Seattle.
Yeah, we just need to get the spotlight on him and pay Teoscar just to shut the hell up about how hard it is to hit in Seattle.
Please.
He is on a PR destruction streak.
Bro, and it's not even like I think he's wrong. I actually probably agree with the dude, but I'm like, I need you. It's a good joke, but I need you to stop, bro.
Be cool, dude. Shut up once in a while. Be cool.
Seriously, we want Pete Alonso to be interested and not to just use us to drive up the market for other teams, asshole.
Okay, so actually, let's stay on the Robles topic because I just thought of a question. Who do you think, what acquisition do you think is going to have a bigger impact rest of season between Robles and Arozarena? It's hot take time if you want it. Ball's in your court.
Wow. I can't believe the two brand new guys to the organization, and this is the clip that's going to go viral, and they're going to fucking hate me. There's no right answer. Honestly, from everything I've seen and knowing, fuck, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do, and this is kind of a fucking...
You're copping out?
I'm cheating a little bit. If the Mariners do not make the playoffs, I'm going Robles. Now, with that being said, if the Mariners do make the playoffs, I think Randy Arozarena is going to do his playoff thing and go out and have his swagger on and show up like he always has for the race when they make the playoffs. So playoff appearance, I'm going to Arozarena. No playoffs, I think Robles is the guy.
Well, and it's funny you bring that up because let's jump into that. The playoff experience, we brought in a ton between Justin Turner. I read somewhere, I didn't look into it, but Turner has played twice as many games in the playoffs as the Seattle Mariners franchise, which I can see that happening. He's played on a ton of playoff teams. I don't think he's maybe missed the playoffs 2 or 3 times in his career. He's been
around for 14 years and spent all that time with the Dodgers. So honestly, yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, he's got 99 career playoff games under his belt. So
and who on the Mariners other than him has playoff experience other than Arozarena and our fucking wild card series?
Yeah, the guys on the 22 team got some, but him, Arozarena, those are huge acquisitions. Garcia's got some with the Blue Jays as well. So that's one of those things.
Garcia was with the Dodgers too.
Yeah, there we go. Garcia's got the experience as well. So that's also going to be huge down the line. These guys know what it takes to kind of get over that line and just kind of that stretch. Because we're getting into August. This is where it gets tiresome. A lot of guys are just kind of tapping out. You're really feeling those sores, those injuries that come along with 162 game season. Those are the guys you're going to look to keep you going, to be like, hey, here's how we're going to get through this.
Yeah, and it's nice, like he said, you're very right about August and, even a little bit in September, though you get those extra bodies up there with the minor league season finishing. With that being said, we have a lot of utility guys and a lot of flexibility in our lineup. Most players don't play every day, and that could pay dividends. I know it can be tough not to be an everyday player and get your at-bats in and get that swing feeling right. But I think this is the time of the year where that could be beneficial to us for sure.
And the other thing is sure there's guys who aren't going to be playing every day, but guys like Moore and Rayleigh and even Turner and Garver with that flexibility they have between mixing in DH and various positions, you can still fit them in 4 games a week. So it's not every day, but you're still getting a ton of games in and you're still getting a little bit of rest, which is going to be really nice come October.
Totally. Even I know we were hard on Haniger, but his defense has not been bad lately. And, Garver has played a pretty decent backup catcher as well. So these guys are doing the little things that it takes to make a championship team. It seems like everybody has bought in, even despite the, cold last month that they had in June. I think the team is bought in, and the team was reinvigorated once they start bringing in more bodies, and the front office showed them, hey, we believe in you guys and we'll bring in extra help. Fucking go win.
I think that's the other important thing is the FO, because I said it a couple times already, it was kind of a growing pessimism when Dipoto did that interview and he's like, it's tough out there. I've never seen it like this, which there definitely is some truth to it. This is one of the less exciting deadlines just because with that third wild card spot, there's more playoff spots, so there's less sellers. But there was a point where I'm like, are we going to do anything? And then you start losing. And now it's like, should we do anything? But the fact that they were able to go out, get Arozarena and get Yimi Garcia, 2 of the bigger names on it, I think that gets guys going, gets them like, all right, they want to win. And that was the criticism that we heard from Cal Raleigh last year. It was like, well, we got to go out and get guys.
They can't make that argument anymore now.
No, the guys are here. And the other thing is Arozarena and Turner, they bring very good vibes. Turner is a guy who's out there having fun. Arozarena, I think everyone knows the story with that. That is not a secret that the guy is a great team player. We even saw it right after he got traded. He buys a ticket to the game to say goodbye to the fans and whatnot. That's stuff you can't teach. That's a skill that you love to bring in to the locker room. So it's super exciting. What I want to know is, do you think that the moves we made, where the team is sitting at today, do you think this is enough to put us over the top and win the division?
Tough to say, man. Houston's got such a good lineup. I don't know if their pitching is going to hold up, to be honest with you. Even the young arms that they have in there, right? Like, I don't know. I don't know, man. I think the Mariners are going to hold up. I think the pitching is going to ultimately carry this team. It's been a very, very healthy rotation all year, despite, Woo's ups and downs with his health. I think pitching will prevail. I think, we're even seeing it in the last 5 games. Even, we're four wins and 1 loss in the last 5 games. And I think we're averaging like 8 runs. Even that game that we lost, our pitchers are not normally going to give up 14 runs. It's not very often that our team's going to give up 14 and we're going to score 7 and lose, so those games are going to happen and you kind of just watch them. And at least it happened to a good team like Boston and not a shitty team like Chicago White Sox. So I think
it happened to a team that's not in the division, which is also very important.
Another big point as well, not in the division. And I know they're the White Sox, but the 3 starters that we faced with Thorpe, Fetty, or however you pronounce it, and Crochet. I mean, those guys are like 3.0 guys. Crochet has the highest WAR of any starting pitcher in the league, and we chased him. We got on him a lot. I obviously defense didn't help him out there, but it's about time we capitalized on other teams' mistakes. It's not something that we've really seen this year.
Yeah, no, and you're absolutely right. Like, yeah, sure, you swept the White Sox, but it's still a Major League Baseball team, and those 3 guys are still wanted by other teams, and we didn't just sweep them. Like, we took it to them.
Yeah,
all 3 games,
and that puts us 6-1 against the White Sox this year. So we're doing what we need to do against the teams we need to do it against.
Yeah, and
the Angels.
And the big thing is we've seen the offense show up against not great teams and just do nothing. They did that against the Marlins. There wasn't much offense against the Rockies. So to
Angels,
see the offense turning it around, even against bad teams, it's still a step forward for us. That's just how bad the offense was for a while.
And I think the offense has been so good over the last 5 games, we might not be in last place offensively anymore.
Oh, runs scored? I'm pretty sure we caught up for sure.
Right? Like
Average,
put up 50 runs in 5 games, that helps.
yeah. Average might be a different story. We'll have to check into that one. But yeah, no, the offense is getting there. And another thing we talked about, not necessarily an acquisition, but just as valuable, is Polo actually hitting well, which could be one of the biggest difference makers. The guy, the second base black hole, if we can just get league average hitting out of that, that's going to make such a big difference in this stretch.
Oh, absolutely, man. You're just lengthening the lineup, right? You got Robles, who's hot. You got Randy Arozarena in the 2-hole now. You brought in Turner, who contributed day one. I think he drove in 2 runs today. One might not have been considered an RBI because it was an error, but he still hit the ball like 107 right out the first baseman and a run scored because of it. How many times have we seen strikeouts in that situation that do no fucking good for the team? So, as you add Julio back into the lineup, you add JP back into the lineup. Now we got Luke Raley hitting 8th. Or, Dylan Moore hitting 9th and not
where they should be.
You lengthen this lineup, it's gonna pay dividends. And Polo's another example. Even as a hot hitter, best case scenario, he's probably looking at the 5 or 6 hole. You get that kind of production out of the 6 hole where he's hitting, 300 with a bomb or 2 per series, like he has been. With our pitching staff, that's a World Series team if those guys can keep hitting like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, from what we've seen this whole season so far, that is a pretty large if when it comes to the offense, but at least we still have that pitching, which is enough to get us to the end. And going back to my question about did we do enough? I think just based on the fact that Houston really didn't do much either is what's going to be the difference maker. So I think this team is capable of it, and now it's just ball is in the player's court, like we said earlier.
I take our deadline versus anybody else in the West for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think among most contenders, I'd say we have a top 3. Off the top of my head, I didn't think too much of this. The only other couple teams, like Yankees had a good one. Orioles are probably the only team that would have had
a really
as good as us. Now, wish list time. This is obviously purely hypothetical, but outside, I know you would just say Vladdy. So outside of Vladdy, is there a move you wish you would have seen us make?
Tough to say, honestly. I would have liked to see something different at first base, I think. But, it depends on what's out there. Obviously, Vladdy wasn't out there. Obviously, Pete Alonso wasn't out there. Christian Walker got hurt, and the Diamondbacks panicked and went and got Josh Bell. So there was not a lot of options at first base. And I don't know where else we could have clearly upgraded. Maybe third base with Paredes. I think that we were all in on Paredes, and the Tampa Bay Rays just preferred getting Morel in the organization. I think we probably offered them something pretty solid, and they were like, no, we want the MLB ready guy who's hitting 30 home runs. Tough to compete with that because we're not going to subtract from the MLB roster like the Cubs were willing to do. So
I think the only player that I could even come to my mind that we'd be able to give up in that situation would be Locklear. He's like the only MLB ready guy that they would have parted with.
And even then, he's so much more unproven than Christopher Morel is at the MLB
that's exactly
level.
it.
So I don't think that, I think they went and made an offer, even like when they were going after Arozarena, maybe they were trying to do something bigger and get both of them in one trade, and they just couldn't line up based off of what the Cubs were willing to give up. So, I really wanted Yimi Garcia. I've been going on to Long Toss every Sunday for the last 3 months, telling all the Blue Jays fans how badly I wanted Yimi Garcia.
Manifested this one.
Yeah, I manifested that one. I've been begging for Garcia. So that was a nugget that made so much sense to me, and they went out and did it, and they paid a good price to get him. Clase is not necessarily cheap. That is a potential starting left fielder for the next decade for the Blue Jays, right? So other than that, I saw the other names move, and out of everybody that moved, I'm kind of like, nah, I'm good. I don't think there was anybody that I really was upset that we missed out on, with the maybe exception of Paredes. And with that being said, like even with Rojas struggling at the plate, his defense is really good. So, it's not the end of the world for me. Vladdy's always option. I don't know. Was there somebody that you wanted that went to another team?
I am still a big fan of Jazz. I like Jazz Chisholm. Obviously, well, there's a couple critiques. The big one is the clubhouse stuff, which I don't necessarily buy into, in that I feel like it's unfair to criticize a guy for not being a big clubhouse guy when he has to play with the Marlins. Like,
You don't know that
you
he's
go
not
to
a
the Marlins and be a great
guy.
clubhouse guy, that? And
Great
seeing
point. I
seeing what he's
completely.
done with the Yankees, like when they're like, hey, day 2, go play third base, something you haven't done, and he does. I think that's he's another guy. You're like, this could be a good team player. And I hate seeing Jazz Chisholm in Yankees colors. That is a guy who should be wearing colorful uniforms. It just seems like they robbed him of his personality.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't as high on him like you are. There's obviously a tremendous amount of upside. He's a great athlete, and who knows, getting him out of Miami, what that'll do for a player to, reignite him. He goes and gets to play at Yankee Stadium. They're playing the Philadelphia Phillies, who have the best record in baseball right now. And you're playing for something that excites you. That gets you going. That's going to make you a better clubhouse member than going into every season expecting to be dog shit like he has been for the last, I don't know, what, 5 years that he's been around in Miami?
He's had, yeah, and he's been on and off, and there's also been the injury history. So there's definitely a lot of risks with acquiring him. But in terms of pure athleticism and baseball upside, it's definitely there.
Yeah, it just felt like that classic Mariners go get a second baseman and then he hits a $150. I just felt like he was going to be our next second base victim. I really did.
Yeah, that could also be a thing that happens, but that's essentially the risk that we feel with every player we acquire. Although, I don't know, Arozarena, it does feel different. Same with Turner, because these guys are professional hitters, right?
Yeah.
Like Turner sees so many pitches, and Arozarena has hit well in Seattle. So this could be something different with these guys. And we'll talk about what we gave up to here real quickly too. Because I just want to do a quick little rant on just kind of like assessing prospect values. Because I think one of the things I saw a lot when we acquired Arozarena, especially online, was people complaining and being like, "Oh, we got the Mariners, 12 and 22 prospect, we got fleeced." One thing I think it's important when we're discussing that to go deeper into it for 2 reasons. One, we have a very deep farm system. Our number 12 prospect is still really good. And what doesn't get mentioned is the fact that Brody Hopkins is a phenomenal athlete. Like, he's got a super high floor, and Aiden Smith is a guy that also insanely high ceiling. If he puts it together, he could be amazing. And so just always keep that in mind, viewers, when we're making trades, because, and not to say that these guys shouldn't have been moved. I really like the trade. This is like the Garcia one. This is going to be a win-win trade, I think.
I think you're right too, and I think and I'm pretty sure it was you that made this point, if I'm not mistaken, about like, hey, if the Rays are scouting this dude and they want him, they're probably gonna work out.
That's the other thing. Is someone's like, "Oh, who's heard of these guys?" Well, the Rays have,
and that's
if
all
they
that
like,
matters.
yeah,
They develop.
if the Rays ask for it, there's also like that meme that always goes around too. It's like, hey, if the Rays ask for him, don't trade him.
Yeah, yeah. They'll be like, oh, that's the guy you want? Let me switch it and give you a better prospect in the world's eyes. I know you guys don't feel that way, but I would feel a lot more comfortable not giving you the people you want.
Okay. One last final thing about the trade deadline, and we can do a quick little talky poo about what's coming up here in the week. What is your favorite non-Mariner move of the deadline?
Yeah, this one is going to be a deep cut, and I've spent most of the week talking about this, man, and it's not going to be the obvious choice, but I think the best trade came from the Dodgers going out and getting Kevin Kiermaier. Now, let me explain. This is a dude that can play defense like nobody else and has been able to for the last decade and a half, it feels like. When you get into those playoffs and you're protecting leads, a guy like Kevin Kiermaier in your outfield is going to save you runs, right? So The Dodgers are good. They'll probably get Betts back for the playoffs. You know, you get the Betts, Freeman, Otani, death, murderers row, whatever you want to call it. And then you just got to go build a lead and then go hold on to it. And I think Kiermaier's going to play a massive part in the Dodgers' success of holding on to leads. So I'm going KK to LA.
Well, and that's the other thing about playoff baseball, right? Is it's such a small sample size. You look at a regular season, if you miss the playoffs, you're not going to look back and be like, if that guy made that play back in June, we'd be in a playoff spot. Whereas playoffs, in the postseason, that's exactly what you're going to say. Someone misses a fly ball. Look at Nelson Cruz is still widely known for dropping that fly ball against the Cardinals. So yeah, I on one hand, I agree with the defense being important. I don't agree with it being the coolest move. That is because as the fan of huge home runs, I am biased towards I have a huge bias towards the Atlanta Braves going out and picking up. Oh my God, I forgot his name.
Jorge Soler.
Jorge Soler. I don't know why it's been a long day. There's a lot going on in my life. But no, Jorge Soler was a huge one for me. I got excited just because he's hit that home run against the Braves, and I love the guy. I'm sorry I forgot your name. If it makes you feel better, I've forgotten a lot of names in the last 10 hours.
I think I'm not as big on Soler. I didn't really want him as a free agent. You know, eventually it just feels like the hitting is going to fall off a cliff, and he's continued to prove me wrong, and I'll give him that.
I'm not saying this is a good move baseball wise, but vibes wise, it's great.
Vibes wise, and that's what I was gonna say. You know, out of all the teams I feel like that player belongs on, I think Atlanta is the answer. To be honest,
that's a bring him home move. All right. Before we wrap it up, let's just jump into the week coming up. We got one more afternoon game against Boston. By the time this is out, that might have even already been played by now. But Philadelphia on the weekend. How are you feeling about that? That's going to be a big one.
Yeah, man, tough to say. You're gonna get Miller and Wu in that series if Wu is in fact healthy. Who knows with this fucking guy? And then Logan on Sunday. So you know, you hope to win the series. Let's win Boston first. You know, let's go take tomorrow. And then head home and hope for the best. Maybe the Philly hitters won't be able to hit there either. You know, I don't know. It's the best team in baseball. It's going to be tough, but it'll be a good test to see where this team is at after the trade deadline for sure.
What would you think? Because Kirby's projected for tomorrow, but we just called up Jonathan Diaz. What would you think about sending Diaz out so you can have Kirby pitch against Philadelphia?
No, I don't think that's the move because and I'm just looking at strictly from AL, NL, and whether or not that we're going to have to go get a wild card spot. I would much rather have that win against Boston than I would against an NL team in Philly. At the end of the day, those games aren't going to be as dire at the end of the year if it's a close race. So I think you got to keep Kirby where he is. I think Diaz was called up because of how short Gilbert went yesterday. More the umpire's fault, in my opinion. Who knows how that game would have gone if he just called a strike right down the fucking middle. I digress. I would leave Kirby to throw against Boston. He's been red hot. I think he's top 4 in ERA over the last month in all of MLB. He's thrown under 2 in his last 4 starts. So I think you got to keep Kirby where he is to pitch against the AL team. That may come down to you and them in the wild card.
As you were talking about it too, I kind of convinced myself out of it as well, just based on the fact that we've used up a lot of bullpen innings this one, and Diaz is less of a sure thing to give you 6 than Kirby is. So it's just good to get that bullpen, give them a break tomorrow, hopefully, and then they've got a day off Thursday, and then travel back to Seattle refreshed for the series against the major league leading Philadelphia Phillies. So that's going to be a fun one to watch.
I also think there's a chance that Diaz stays up with the squad and turns into a long reliever to protect these younger arms at this point. Even Kirby,
I think especially Wu. I don't think we're gonna see Wu throw over like 80 pitches for the rest of the season at this point.
I can't see him going longer than 4 innings, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that's what we're doing. That's the new strategy is get a long reliever and then maybe, throw Wu down, bring up Hancock. But even with Hancock up, I still think they're not going to try and stretch him out too much just with injury histories to both of them.
I personally love the idea of having Wu, as like a starter or an opener. What do they used to call it in Tampa? An opener?
Opener.
An opener. I wouldn't mind having him as like an opener and doing 2 innings or maybe 3 innings one time through the batting order, and then going to Diaz to throw another 3 or 4, get to your back end of the bullpen, and then go on your way. That way, the way we can keep Wu healthy, and then we can use him out of the bullpen come playoff time.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with that one. I think Wu, we're not going to see many innings out of him rest of the season though. So I think that's gonna wrap everything up. Do you got any final thoughts before we go?
Fuck the Astros.
Well, that's not a final. That's just a recurring thought. We should just have a banner that says that. Not even anything mentioning the Mariners, just trashing the Astros.
Dude, can we get a ticker that just says "fuck the Astros" on a ribbon?
It's like modern day politics. You're not arguing for yourself. You're just campaigning against the other team. We're doing that with this is a We Hate the Astros podcast.
I'll tell you what. September will convince Mike. We'll convince editor Mike to do it if it's still a tight race between us and them. We'll just have a fucking ticker the entire episode.
That's how we'll be remembered too. The fans will be like, "That's what sent the Mariners over the edge. That's what got them into playoffs. Is that banner."
It'll just be a trash can emoji, fuck the Astros trash can emoji on fucking repeat the entire episode.
We could have it like the stock market ticker going by too.
Exactly what I was thinking.
It won't be stationary. Okay, well, that's going to wrap up our show. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Walkoff Mariners. Join the discussion in the comments. There was lots to discuss today. Once again, for Juan Forno, I am Jordy Botts, and have a great week.